Welcome, everybody. A very, very warm welcome to everybody here. Thank you so much for coming today. Actually, this is my first webinar, community webinar as Executive Chair at BBSRC, and I just wanted to start by saying what a privilege it is to be in this role, and actually to thank Melanie Wellham, my predecessor, who was in the role for 5 years and who really built a BBSRC that has been such a pleasure really to inherit. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank really warmly Guy Poppy, who was in the role for a year and who I'm very glad to say is staying on our BBSRC Council, but also to wish him well in his new and exciting role as Pro-Vice Chancellor for Research at the University of Bristol. I don't know if Guy is on this call. I can't see who's there, but thank you, Guy, for doing this for so long. Bill Paul, as some of you may know, has been our Chief Executive Officer within BBSRC for many years, and he recently stepped down, and we thank him for all his huge contributions over the years. We will have a new coup at the next year in March 2025, and we look forward to announcing that in due course. So today, in addition to me, we have the executive leadership team of BBSRC here with us today. That's Amanda Collis, Karen Lewis, Sarah Perkins, and Jef Grainger. And we're also going to hear from Tim Shuttleworth and Rob Hardwick from the team as well. During basically the order of events today is that you'll get a brief introduction, a brief introductory update from me on some of the aspects of how we've been working with government, with partners and with stakeholders to really co-create strategies to enable bioscience research and innovation to flourish, delivering the bio-based solutions that we're all working so hard to generate. I hope that you'll learn a little of the things that are particularly important to me as I have been getting more familiar with working within BBSRC, working with you, working with the wider community these past few months since the beginning of July. After me, you'll hear from Tim and Rob, who are going to do a piece on our research technical professionals, a really important priority area for us as we develop our funding strategies going forward. And after that, you will hear from Jef Grainger, who will introduce some work we're doing around response mode evaluation and reform. And he's doing that because it's at its very early stage, and we really value input from you in the community. And then at the end, there'll be a panel Q&A with me and the exec team, and we look forward to talking to you some more. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, which I should have done before. Let me just do that. Where am I? Share. I think it's this one. Oh gosh, what's happened? I've got rubbish here. Hold on. Can you see my screen? No.
Not at the moment.
Okay, hold on. Let me sort this out. Oh, it's because it's down here. Okay, there we go. Okay. Okay. How's that? Got it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So apologies. As you know, BBSRC has been at the heart of UK bioscience actually for over 30 years now, and 2024 marks our 30th anniversary year. And indeed, we're going to be celebrating up north, up in Edinburgh in March. Working closely with our community and partners, we've really supported groundbreaking discoveries and technologies that I hope you agree have had a huge impact, not just in advancing our scientific knowledge, but really having real world application, something for us really to celebrate as a community. Supporting pioneering research, for example, the discovery of Dolly the sheep, or the synthesis of Dolly the sheep, one of our early success stories from 1996, the first clone mammal ever to be created from an adult cell, and work that really inspired the pioneering subsequent work on induced pluripotent stem cells, which has opened really dramatic new avenues for regenerative medicine and cell therapies. Pathogen preparedness and eradication, key global challenges that we in BBSRC have played a key role in contributing to, and work that's had major economic impact. And I've just picked the work on wheat, where over 300 million has been invested in wheat research since 2000, resulting in a return on investment of 4-to-1 in the UK and close to 9-to-1 globally for every pound invested. Really exemplifying the importance of the work that we do. Our current vision is really to advance the frontiers of biology and to drive towards a healthy, prosperous, and sustainable future. However, in a changing landscape with remarkable technological advances, the advances that really shape our research activities of the future, thinking not only about what we do, but how we do it and with whom will really play a key role in achieving that advance. So not only are we in BBSRC working towards our own vision, but also looking forward, we currently have and continue to play a key role at the centre of many of the cross-disciplinary activities within UKRI, working closely with all of the other councils. Here's a few sort of a few facts and figures. We've spent last year almost £500 million on research, funding 2,847 active awards. Highlights really have to be the support that we give to young talent, which remains one of our highest priorities, the development and nurturing of future generations. We support around 2,000 students, 197 fellows, and 1,600 early career researchers. We remain committed to supporting discovery research, predominantly through our responsive mode programs. And Jef will talk a bit more about this, but at the moment, last year we funded around 200 response mode grants from about a third of this budget. We support 8 institutes in 5 innovation campuses, really encouraging and enabling public-private research engagement and partnership and investment. And that's a very important part of our portfolio. If we look at an overview of the research investment spend, not including studentships and major capital investments, about 2/3 of our total research spend supports higher education institutions, universities, and about 1/3 supports our institutes. 37% of the portfolio relates specifically to understanding the rules of life, where as I say, the majority of the funding is still delivered through our responsive mode, primarily to universities. 63% of the portfolio addresses one or more of our strategic challenge areas, that of sustainable agriculture and food, advanced manufacturing and clean growth, and an integrated understanding of health. But of course, we take very seriously our support for transformative technologies, which is another of our strategic priorities, and it spans the whole portfolio. In there, and what's really exciting and very much growing in momentum is engineering biology, which remains one of the government's critical technologies. And I wanted to say a little bit about this because while we've been investing in this for many years, including through our synthetic biology programs, it's really risen to prominence, and now is engineering biology time more than ever. And so, and as I say, that momentum is really gaining. Engineering biology is really globally acknowledged as a technology of major importance, predicted to add up to $4 trillion per annum to the global economy over the next decade. And in 2020, recognizing the rapid evolution of the technology and the potential for even greater impact across a wider range of cross-disciplinary interfaces, the UKRI, in collaboration with the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, Distal, held a series of stakeholder engagement events with academia, business, government, and funders to produce an overarching vision for engineering biology in the UK. So this national engineering biology programme has really gone on to inform our most recent investments in the UK and internationally. And the programme recognises four very application-inspired themes and challenges around biomedicine, clean growth, food systems, and environmental solutions, as well as three discovery-inspired themes and challenges, bio-inspired design, bioengineered cells and systems, and novel materials. This programme really recognised the need to invest in cross-cutting research and technologies and the importance of developing an ecosystem that provided underpinning enablers, for example, around talent and skills and knowledge exchange and commercialisation. And most importantly, really, as I said, it provided this framework for the Technology Missions Fund programme, this missions approach to deploy funding in the engineering biology space, this major government investment that many of you I know in the room are involved with. So BBSRC now leads the National Engineering Biology Programme, building on previous substantial investments. And it's a really great example of cross UKRI working, with BBSRC working really well with this, with multiple councils, but in particular NERC, EPSRC, MRC, and Innovate UK. But it's actually more than just research councils. It's outside the sector as well, working with regulators, working more closely with government, working with investors, and really building a mixed ecosystem where people can come together, people are coming together and broadening their perspective and adding value to the research that they're doing. So through this Technology Missions Fund and UKRI funding, we've been able to invest in world-class projects all over the UK, as shown here on the map. But this is just part of the support. In addition, we have international partnerships with lead agency agreements with the NSF in the US, for example. We're driving innovation in this space by working with business, and equipping researchers with entrepreneurial and working with other key stakeholders, as I said, the DCIT and other government departments on strategy and policy, etc. We've also been supporting the development of standards and metrology changing, which is being led by the National Measurement Lab. So really going out there, interacting with the wider community. And actually recently funding a CDTs between Bristol University and Oxford. And please watch this space for more skills and training investment in this area. So, of course, within BBSRC, we remain challenge-led. Bioscience is uniquely placed to provide solutions to many of the national and global challenges we're facing as a society by supporting both fundamental and strategic research programs and the pathway to innovation. We can really deliver solutions, and we have many examples of impactful outcomes and conceptual advances in these four key areas around environment and climate change, food security and nutrition, healthy aging, and infectious diseases. But this can really only be achieved through close partnership working, both within UKRI, across councils, and with other partners. And a particularly exciting example of such partnership working is shown on the next slide, which is the Land Use for Net Zero programme, which is a 20 million investment, which is helping to drive transformation of UK land use to achieve net zero. It's co-designed with multiple government departments, which is really good. I hope that we within UKRI can help incentivise closer cross-departmental government interactions, and this particular research will feed directly into policy and decision making. Led by BBSRC, this falls under the UKRI's cross-council Building a Green Future strategic theme, and it's unique because of its really ability to catalyse these interactions between different government departments. It's been a busy year for BBSRC. Just to flag some of the other examples of the activities we've been doing, I've talked about the land use for net zero and the engineering biology awards, but we've been working, for example, with EPSRC and Innovate to support a sustainable biomanufacturing work, and recently have been involved in the launch of an infrastructure strategic framework. I wanted to say a little bit about the 34 million investment in BioFair, because we're in the middle of a data revolution within all disciplines. Our data is a strategic asset to the UK, and there are real challenges actually in setting up its use for success, particularly with respect to science data. And we are at a key moment in really, I think, in getting this right. And UKRI are in the midst of developing an organisational and operational strategy for data, with the goal of being able to make the best of the data that's out there and provide access to those who need it securely and reliably. And to that end, in July, we announced a 34 million investment in BioFair, which is a UKRI-funded federated digital research infrastructure, which will deliver a step change in findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable research data management, providing end-to-end fair research data management and analysis capabilities. It also provides support and training for UK researchers who are working in the life sciences, and it's involved with working with national digital research infrastructures and related national and international data hubs. So that's a very exciting development that I hope you will all engage with and benefit from. And also, I wanted to emphasize the importance of our international partnerships. And in October, we announced we announced 6 new global centres in partnership with the NSF. That's just a small fraction of some of the major international activities. Of course, we work with several low to middle income countries as well, and we are continuing to prioritise that global responsibility that we have. I want to say something about supporting people, culture and talent, because it remains, as you know, a major priority for BBSRC. We made 15 awards of BBSRC fellowships this year, and funded 3 BBSRC, EPSRC centres for doctoral training. Again, reflecting the UKRI's new approach to cross-council collective talent funding, we just recently announced our BBSRC NERC doctoral training programs. Actually, our doctoral landscape awards, they're now called. They went to 21 universities, and actually amounting to about 293 million, funding more than 2,300 studentships across 5 cohorts. Again, BBSRC investing in people and skills and our early career researchers. And we've provided funding for championing a range of research culture activities, a Connecting Culture Fund, and activities designed to enhance EDI in BBSRC funded networks. We are looking ahead, and I joined when I took on this role. We were almost actually finished our refreshed forward look, which will contribute to our new delivery plan for the next period. We plan to launch this in spring 2025, and I just wanted to thank the really welcome contributions that we've had from the whole community. We've ran Big Ideas Pipelines, Futures Workshop, annual strategic workshops, community consultations. A couple of months ago, I really enjoyed chairing something new that we'd not done before, which was a set of executive chair roundtables, which actually were really frank series of conversations with 4 groups: government advisors and policymakers, early career researchers, other funding organisations, because I really think we have to be developing developing more multi-funder models going forward, and representatives from business and industry, and that's really made us think, I hope, ambitiously and creatively of ways in which we can refresh our forward look in new and ambitious ways. So thank you for all your input in those. I have to say something about the spending review. It does take up a lot of our time and focus within UKRI, and it's really about making a case to government for the R&D budget via this spending review. And it's conducted through very close working with DCIT, and especially, I have to say, with a very proactive and visionary Minister, Patrick Vallance, who has a deep understanding of the science research landscape, and a real recognition within government that R&D sits at the foundation of economic growth, not just within DCIT, but with other departments too, and in particular BBSRC has a very close working relationship with DEFRA. There is a very challenging fiscal backdrop to this spending review. As I say, the Chancellor recognises that research and innovation is a key driver of sustainable economic growth, productivity, and improved public services. But that doesn't mean it's an easy ride. The spending review is happening in two phases. Spending review one, the first phase is a 1-year settlement for 25-26 and we know that around 20.4 billion has been allocated to research and development across all departments, with close to 14 being allocated to DCIT, and we're working with them on that allocation for UKRI at the moment. And then there's a second spending review phase, which we hope will result in a multi-year settlement. And it's encouraging to hear government talking about longer term funding mechanisms. So BBSRC will continue to work with you, the community, to make the best possible case for the value of research and innovation to the UK, and really ensure that we're having funds to support the important activities during a time of real pressure, inflationary pressures, etc. I'm not going to say a lot about government missions. The government have been vocal about their mission-based approach to their national priorities. We are being encouraged within UKRI not to mission wash our research, but the government has made a commitment to these 5 key missions, and we at BBSRC are conducting research that clearly has a major contribution to make to at least 3 of these. But indeed, UKRI are working very hard, cross-council altogether, really, to help government achieve the outcomes of these missions. It's not all a bed of roses, we know that there are some really live issues that are seriously impacting the research and innovation system, not least the financial sustainability of our higher education institutions. This has been exacerbated not only in these institutions, but more widely by national insurance increase announced in the recent budget. And from a research perspective, UKRI is engaging closely with senior leaders in the sector. And actually, we in BBSRC are doing this too, to continue to engage with our partner institutions. Now that I've sort of found my feet, next year, I hope to visit many of you in person. I've had conversations with some of you already, and please do reach out to me. Of course, also within this are the new, we have operational challenges. UKRI in the process of transferring to a new funding service, and we continue to rely on your feedback, in addition to the intensive work going on within our councils to make this a smooth transition. Trusted research. We know that there are geopolitical challenges that mean that we have become increasingly aware of the need to be conducting responsible research, and most institutions are grappling with this very moving landscape very well, putting in place enabling processes to support their researchers in the trusted research arena. But it is an ever-changing landscape. It is requiring resource from your institutions, we know, and it's not going to go away for the foreseeable future. I also wanted to comment on a very recent trend within our response mode portfolio that in part reflects the financial landscape at the moment. We are seeing both an increase in grant application numbers, but more importantly, and actually quite appropriately, an increase in the size of each grant coming in, reflecting the real cost of the research. This is resulting in a reduction in our predicted up-and-coming success rates, which are likely to shift from between 21 to 23% to around 16 to 18%. It is really important that you do continue to submit the true costs of your research in your grant applications, and we're monitoring this quite closely. This has been a very recent change in our in the patterns, and so we're looking at this closely. We're analysing data and interacting with the community, but these pressures mean that it's likely that we will be funding fewer grants going forward, but they will be larger. On that sobering note, I'd like to end by sort of saying my priorities that I've been thinking about for this year really have been focusing on not only spending review and UKRI-centric activities, but developing BBSRC's forward-looking delivery plan to really reflect a changing bioscience landscape. And I hope we can be ambitious and compelling going forward. Working within UKRI to ensure that UK Bioscience is effectively embedded in the activities of other councils, and that the activities of other councils that are relevant to our activities are embedded in our strategic thinking as well. And I have to say that the team of executive chairs that I've joined, many of whom are new in the role, are an absolute pleasure to work with, and we're working really well together. So I think there's new and exciting times ahead in the way UKRI is evolving. Really importantly, and we were discussing this yesterday in our council meeting, developing and continuing to invest in our skills base and new talent, and doing that really thought to the needs of both the research sector and the private sector too. For example, are we training our students to be able to to mend robots and things like that are now part of our new technological landscape? I mean, that's just one quick example, but of course, but seriously, I mean, we have to really make sure that we have a skills-based and that we're training people in areas that are absolutely fit for purpose. And importantly, continuing to ensure the highest quality research is funded by the BBSRC, that we are not just holding the purse strings, but we are co-creating and enabling the best type of research in our national bioscience landscape. So working with you, sort of top-down meeting bottom-up, to really enable support and co-create and incentivize and motivate connectivity, because it's that connectivity and collaboration that provides that added value to everything that we do. So I'm going to stop now. We're going to hear from Rob Hardwick and Tim Shuttleworth, who are going to talk about research technical professionals, and they're going to hand over then to Jef Grainger on responsive mode, and then you'll have hopefully some time to have a Q&A with us towards the end. So I'll stop there and thank you for your attention and hand over to Rob and Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I think Tim's going to share the slides. So we're going to do a bit of a double act for you on research technical professionals and their importance for bioscience and what BBSRC is doing, or some of the things we're doing anyway, in support of this important group of individuals. Next slide, please, Tim. So we'll start with a definition to understand what we mean by research technical professionals. And for us, it's an umbrella term we use to capture that segment of the workforce that have been trained in specialist technical skills for instrumentation, for methodologies and methods, which can typically be deployed across a variety of different research projects and innovation projects. And necessarily that captures a whole range of different occupations, some of which are listed on this slide here, including technical staff, facility staff, data scientists, statisticians, and more. Next slide, please, Tim. And we recognise the vital importance of all the workforce actually in delivering research and innovation for the UK. But on the technical skills point, it's probably best captured within the UKRI strategy for world-class people and careers, particularly under the priority 1.2 about developing the breadth of skilled people and teams essential for the future R&D workforce, but also in ones around improving the research culture in the system as well. And at a UKRI level, we have a People and Teams UKRI Action Plan. It's published in March 2023, which brought together previous action plans around the technician commitment and the Concordat for research and development. And that talks about a lot of things that we plan to do at UKRI level to recognise and support technical skills and also research skills and sustain those careers. It's also worth noting that as UKRI, we are signatories of the technician commitment and the Concordat for the career development of researchers, which again signals our intent to back the sector in supporting these individuals in their career development. It's also worth pointing out that Research England fund the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy, which hosts the technician commitment and are advocates of technical careers as well. So these are just some of the important ways we signal strategically that we support technical skills across the sector. Next slide, Tim.
Thanks, Rob. I'll take it from here. So, yes, as Rob has kind of laid out, the BBSRC kind of absolutely recognises the importance of RTPs, and I just wanted to highlight some of the kind of strategy documents that we published over the previous few years, really, which indeed highlight the importance of RTPs or professional roles. So going back to 2020, when we published our review of data-intensive biosciences, indeed one of the recommendations is we should kind of catalyse the establishment of professional roles, including those kind of technical supporting roles to research. Fast forwarding then to 2023 with our review of technology development in the biosciences, again, one of the recommendations that we should work with the research technical community to highlight the talent and promote their central role in developing new technologies, which will go on to enable new research in the biosciences. And then finally, in this year's infrastructure strategic framework mentioned in Anne's introduction, that really kind of lays out our commitment to advocating for the crucial role that research technical professionals play in infrastructure. That includes kind of the design and build of key infrastructure, but also then operation and maintenance to ensure this kind of smooth long-term operation and ensure we get the maximum value for our investment in terms of supporting our researchers. So BBSRC works with RTPs in a number of ways, and these are some of the ways that we've outlined in our infrastructure strategic framework. So we're committed to providing opportunities to influence BBSRC strategic planning and embedding support for RTPs through our peer review processes, both in terms of recognising their skills and expertise, but also encouraging them to kind of partake in peer review processes as well. For example, kind of reviewing grants and being part of assessment panels. We like to raise awareness of funding eligibility. So some of you may be familiar with our alert call for mid-range equipment or transformative research technologies. Funding opportunities, both of which we've had great success with RTP-led awards, which I'll go on to later, but also wishing to highlight that RTPs can be included in responsive mode grants as either project leads or co-leads or kind of named individuals on the grants. And then also to highlight, as Rob said in a couple of slides ago, around our collaboration with external partners. So we work closely using our convening power to bring together kind of research organisations, learning societies, and of course working closely with the Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy around how we can ensure that we're providing a framework that kind of best kind of recognises and support RTPs in kind of career development and so on. So I'll hand back to Rob now.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, so just to pick up on a few key examples then of how we are supporting RTPs in different ways. So Tim mentioned there one of the key ways is around how we engage them in our strategic decision-making processes. And one of the big things we're doing there is to bring them involved into our people and talent strategy advisory panel via our newly formed RTP subgroup, which sits alongside another researcher subgroup as well. And so for those who don't know, this is our formal advisory structure for our strategy around people and culture, comprising academics, industrialists, and staff developers qualified to talk on this subject. But these different groups provide a forum in which their voices can be heard, and they can then directly input into our planning for things like the spending review, the new forward look refresh, our delivery plans moving forwards, and other more specific issues around terms and conditions of awards and all kinds of different issues they want to bring to the table. So this provides a real great forum for them to feed into our advisory structures and get their voices heard. Next slide, please, Tim. And Tim also mentioned there about peer review. So you'll be aware that the pool of experts is our peer review college and our primary source of experts to review our grant proposals. And last year we opened up eligibility for this to early career researchers and RTPs for the first time. And of the 150 appointments made to the pool of experts, around a third were ECRs, which was great to see. And we also had 2 RTPs in there. And whilst 2 may not seem like a great high number, it is a start, and we will intend to build that number to get their expertise really embedded within our peer review processes as well moving forward. And funding eligibility, another important topic which we need to communicate actively to the community about how they can engage with our grant opportunities. So just to be clear, that RTPs are eligible to apply for a range of funding opportunities at BBSRC, including as project lead and as co-lead, provided they meet certain criteria, in that their appointment is resourced from the central funds of their institution at the time of application, and that they carry a level of responsibility and range of duties that are appropriate for someone with substantial research experience. So I guess the message here is really, whether they're on an academic track or a technical track or whatever professional service tracks there may be within the university involved or the institute involved, provided they meet these certain criteria, RTPs are eligible to be projects and co-leads on a range of different funding opportunities that we put out there. And it also extends into other things we do as well. And in our fellowship space, the BBSE Fellowship Scheme, which we run annually, and we'll be launching again in the new year, that is open to RTPs as well. One of the major policy decisions we made in recent years was to drop the requirement for a PhD to be eligible to apply, and instead emphasize the equivalent research experience as being the qualifier there. So therefore, RTPs, some who may not have a PhD, can now actually come in for these opportunities and be competitive. And we'd also recognise RTPs through the resume for research innovation, which is now embedded across the funding service in all the things that we offer in terms of grants. So it's another great way to recognise their contributions to team science. In the entrepreneurship and commercialisation space, we support the iCure Explore programme, working with Innovate on this. And again, we have made it quite clear that we want to see RTPs and other individuals applying in for these sort of opportunities. Now, and unfortunately, at this moment in time, we haven't had much interaction with RTPs on these schemes, and that's something we actively want to encourage more involvement with, but they are eligible to apply under those certain criteria of the calls. And Tim also mentioned working in partnership across the sector. And in terms of training partnerships, one of the important ways we support RTPs with their training is through the Flexible Talent Mobility Accounts, or FTMAs. Now, these are awards we issue to partnerships, and we awarded some earlier in the year to around 11 partnerships across the UK. And these give flexibility to the grant holders to enable and facilitate placements, secondments, short bits of training for a wide range of research innovation staff, which includes RTPs. And very specifically, we ring-fence 25% of that award to make sure RTPs do benefit from these opportunities. So this is a really positive way in which we are channeling funding to institutions to support their RTPs and other staff as well. And just to give a couple of very quick examples of this from previous rounds of FTMA. So in this instance, an individual did a 6-month secondment at the Queen Mary University of London, where they were looking at techniques for the analysis of airborne DNA. And as part of their FTMA placements, they engaged with potential end users and did some proof of concept analyses with these end users as part of that particular project. And after doing this, they were able to facilitate a conference with different end users and policy partners. They were able to demonstrate the proof of concept of this technique. They were seeking follow-on funding from the Natural England, and that technician actually then went on to get a job as a project manager at the Environment Agency following their placement as well. So a good outcome there for the RTP and other benefits as well that the RO would have seen. And then one other example from Cambridge, where an imaging facility manager did an FTMA secondment at Laker Microsystems in Germany. And through that, they gained knowledge and skills in microscopy, but also importantly brought that knowledge back to the UK and prepared some training course sessions at Cambridge to benefit other individuals who are interested in this technology. So really spreading that knowledge more widely. And of course, building partnerships and relationships with individuals in Laker Microsystems, which would be beneficial in their future work. So just some very quick examples, I guess, of how FTMA can benefit different individuals.
Thanks, Rob. I'll kind of talk here about some of the calls that my team runs. So I mentioned earlier the alert call, which some of you may be familiar with, which supports the purchase of mid-range equipment, as we call it, in to support the biosciences. So that's equipment ranging from £200,000 up to 1.5 million. And without kind of going into details on a specific call, it's great to kind of highlight the successes we've seen with RTP inclusive applications. So those with kind of RTPs as kind of project lead, co-lead, or heavily involved in the design. So in the recent 3 rounds that we've had, almost a third of all applications included RTPs, and within that, 36 of them were actually led by RTPs. And it's great to see that 19 of them that were RTP led were actually then moved forward to award. So, you know, it's good to see that there is progress to be made, but to kind of, as Rob was saying earlier, we look to kind of strengthen those numbers as we continue working with the community going forward. So yeah, since 2021, over half of the RTP-led alert applications have been successful, and indeed in 2021 and 2022, both of the top-ranked proposals were RTP-led. So the take-home message there is that close engagement with the RTP community really does strengthen alert applications. We'd highly encourage applicants to consider that as part of the process. Alert 24 is currently open. That closes in early January. So if you haven't already started developing an application and you're interested, please do so. And if you have any questions about that, the email address is at the bottom. Just wanted to highlight that. So last year we worked in partnership with the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy to develop a series of videos kind of highlighting some of the successes we've had with RTPs in alert. So there's a short playlist of 3 videos here on YouTube, and I would highly encourage you to go and watch them. The first one talks to Tony Larson from the University of York, who talks about the role of alert plays in supporting his research, the research that he enables there at York. And the third video then is from Professor Pippa Hawes, who's now at the Francis Crick Institute. She has been the alert panel chair for several years, and she talks very eloquently about the importance of RTP recognition, both across the system, but also specifically within alert applications. A couple of other great examples of RTPs who've been supported through alerts. So Dr. Rachel Walker from the Babraham Institute that we helped to support the purchase of a single cell, an automated single cell dispenser, and Professor Milne, Dr. Ian Milne at the James Hutton Institute for the Crop Diversity HPC, which actually supports 7 institutes across the UK, and it's around computational kind of modeling, particularly in the plant sciences. And there's some great quotes there around how these awards have helped kind of develop essential skills and capabilities, and also elevated the visibility of the kind of the technical professionals within these endeavours. I also mentioned earlier transformative research technologies. So some of you may be more familiar with a a previous call we used to run called TRDF. TRT, as it's now called, kind of developed from TRDF in response to some of the recommendations of the technology development view that I highlighted earlier. And this provides small funds for early stage development of kind of cutting edge research technologies. Only one round has fully completed since its revamp, and of those 73 applications, 4 were RTP-led, and 3 of the awards were actually RTP-led. So again, a good start, and a trend that we hope to see increasing as the call continues. Some lovely case studies here from some successful applicants, talking about how the layout of the core was such that it kind of was easy to access, but also here from Charles Wood here, yeah, who says about how the award kind of enhanced the contributions to the university and helped them demonstrate how the importance of the skills around kind of balancing research and development of new technologies, but also managing facilities as well, and ensuring that those facilities don't fall short of their obligation to support the wider research community at the organisation. And I just wanted to finish about to talk about the way in which we support RTPs across UKRI, and just picking up on what Anne said in her introduction around the kind of data revolution that's happening across the sciences. BBSRC is working closely with UKRI counterparts across the councils to deliver its vision for a coherent state-of-the-art digital research infrastructure. And that includes kind of large-scale compute facilities and data storage and lots of software and code, but also really importantly, the people aspect. So those experts who develop and maintain the resources, and indeed the kind of data stewards and curators who really make sure that this is most effective for the community. That program has introduced the term digital RTP. So another kind of a catch-all phrase that kind of like the phrase RTP is helping us to kind of champion the needs of these individuals and important roles within UKRI and further. So including data scientists, research software engineers, as I mentioned before, data stewards and curators, and also system architects and administrators. And I just wanted to quickly highlight 3 calls which the DRI program are delivering. One of these is about to announce, hopefully in the coming weeks, and 2 with the assessment ongoing. And I wanted to highlight these because even if you're not involved with one of these, the nature of all 3 of these, the projects that will be funded through these calls, is to then go out and look into the community and help develop the skills and the professionalization around some of these core skills. So do kind of keep an eye out if that's something that is relevant to your research. Yeah, so watch this space. So in conclusion then, I hope that we've kind of demonstrated in some way that BBSRC is continuing to champion the important role of RTPs across all of our investments, and indeed supporting them in a number of ways. So I'll leave it there and welcome any questions. I believe that's to come after the next presentation then. In which case I'll stop sharing and we'll hand over to Jef.
Thanks, Tim. Bear with me whilst I attempt to share my screen. Can you see that in the right format? I'll just check hands up from the rest of the panel. Yeah, great, thank you. I am here to talk about responsive mode, and as foreshadowed, some of the work that we're kicking off to take a deep dive on it, really. For those of you that were at the webinar last year, I gave a presentation around peer review innovation and the work that's been going on at UKRI level and within the individual councils, and pooling some collective thinking on that. And this is really a bit of a follow-on for kind of getting under the hood of what we're doing and making sure that it's fit for purpose. Oh. So just a bit of context about responsive mode, which I shall refer to as RM from now on to shorten things. Most research councils have responsive mode, but they're all a bit different. They're different in scale, they're different in scope, And within UKRI, the underlying systems and kind of operational parameters are kind of coming towards a mean, but nevertheless, there are distinctive features of responsive mode, which are primarily based on the different communities and needs that they serve. What's changed recently is we now have a cross-council research council interdisciplinary responsive mode, which is in a kind of advanced stage of piloting and has really thrown up some great stuff. So that's new, and that's attempts to deal with the challenge of how to effectively target proposals that don't sit neatly within the remit of a single research council. But BBSRC Responsive Mode continues to be a critical vehicle for us. It remains our largest research and innovation investment year on year, and it really is positioned as a core engine for world-class UK bioscience and research-led endeavour. It's worth saying that under the current government, that is extremely important. The current Science Minister, Patrick Vallance, is really keen on making sure that the importance of discovery research is front and centre in terms of UKRI's investments, both in its own right and as an engine for innovation going forward. So why are we looking at this now? Partly because the current model of BBSRC Responsive Mode, the 4-committee model, is now 15 years old. The first sitting of those committees was in May 2009. Before that, we had a system of 7 research committees. And there's been a lot of evolution of that system since. We've introduced the pool of experts. We have changed the way we run our meetings, partly in response to the COVID pandemic, which has led to some changes. For example, the committee's meeting online now, which we are maintaining it for now. But apart from those kind of more incremental developments, we haven't really looked at the scheme in a systematic way since 2009, and it's a high time we did, partly because it remains our biggest budget. It's a budget that we protect in lean times, and at times government is curious to understand what that large investment that we are doing is doing for the taxpayer. That large investment really is significant. Over that 15-year period, we have probably invested around, non-inflation adjusted, around £2 billion worth of research through responsive mode. So it's a major investment of taxpayers' money. And just to put a bit of context in, at the moment, that's probably in the region of around about £140 million a year, which is supporting roughly 200 grants per year. So that gives you a sense of the scale of what we're doing. And as Anne alluded to as well, the system is under pressure. Our success rates are under pressure from demand and costs, but also the cost of engaging in the system is high. We know that people really struggle to find the time to engage in the peer review system, and doing responsive mode properly is labour intensive. So both for the community and administratively as well. But at the same time, a lot is changing in terms of the tools and systems that we have to support the way we run responsive mode. And for that reason, there are, it's timely to look at whether we have opportunities to innovate what we're doing to ensure we stay at the cutting edge. And speaking of that, we have many success stories through responsive mode, lots of great examples of fantastic research that has been supported, and a pretty well-tensioned system. Nevertheless, I think we accept that we sometimes get mixed feedback. There are mixed views from different parts of the community, depending where you're sitting, as to what responsive mode is doing for the community. We get messages around, for example, the risk appetite, around scaling, that sort of thing. So there are issues that we would like to understand better. So to do that, we need to review what we're doing. And to just put this into context, we have a programme of ongoing evaluations, by which, as part of our assessment and assurance, we look at our investment strategy in different areas to determine whether it's been successful, fit for purpose, and learning we can take forward. So, for example, we've recently done evaluations in AMR and industrial biotechnology. So it's now responsive mode's turn under the spotlight. And we're really looking to understand what responsive mode means to the bioscience community, to test some of our assumptions around the primary purpose. I think one of the things we recognise is that in the kind of of move to UKRI world of communications, the amount that we actually talk about responsive mode in the public domain has diminished. And actually, to some extent, the primary purpose probably now exists in our collective consciousness rather than written down somewhere. So it's really important, I think, to re-establish a sense of what our primary purpose is and what that means to the community, but also recognizing that responsive mode is a broad church. There's a whole number of added value propositions that we deliver through responsive mode, and it has a cultural role in terms of supporting emerging and established bioscience research groups. So we really want to get under the skin of the portfolio. We've got about 10 years worth of data we are now starting to look at, about effectively asking the basic questions: who are we supporting, what are we supporting, where are we supporting it, what are the key trends been over that time, well, what is the uniqueness of BBSRC responsive mode, what is being funded through responsive mode that probably is not being funded anywhere else, what are the key strengths and weaknesses, and are there potential gaps, are there things that we would expect that should be being funded that are not being supported. And then to have a look at the value of the outputs in the broadest sense. We're not just talking about research impact, but we're talking about a number of different metrics around what responsive mode is doing to support bioscience and the impact of bioscience in its broadest sense, be that through partnerships with industry and with policymakers, societal value, training, all of those things. And we also want to test the difference between any community perceptions and the evidence that we throw up. Sometimes we find there is a significant difference and sometimes there isn't. So it's a real chance before we start to look at how we might change things to make sure that we are making evidence-based decisions. So the evaluation is now kicking off. It's going to be a multi-part analysis. One of the truisms about evaluations is to do them properly is expensive and time-consuming. But what we're doing is chunking it up into different parts so we can start to use the evidence that's coming out as soon as possible. We don't want to wait 2 years down the line to have a shiny document. We want to use this in an agile way. So we've already kicked off the grants data analysis, which we're going to do internally because we own that data, and we can do. And then there's, alongside this, going to be some community consultation. I guess the first part of that is today. We'll test a couple of high-level questions with you today, and that will help us to test views and perceptions and the parameters of some of the questions that we might want to ask. We obviously really need the bioscience community to come along with us on this journey, and we want to hear from you. And then we'll probably be commissioning some, once we've got that initial cut of both kind of quantitative and qualitative data, some more clever data analysis that we're not able to do in-house, which we can take out and do independently through companies that have some really nifty tools now for analysing bibliometrics and metadata to a degree that we can't. And then this will all be brought together in a final synthesis, which will be guided by an independent expert review, which is typical for the way we do these things. So we will not be marking our own homework on this. As I said, in the interim, we will be pulling data out as we go. And what we will be doing with that is really starting to think about the future. We want to start to look at options to evolve responsive mode to make sure it remains fit for purpose. We've heard already that bioscience is changing rapidly. We had a BBSRC council yesterday, and one of the themes out of that is the speed at which bioscience is changing, and that we really need to make sure that we're at the thin end of the wedge of that. We need to be, I think, more explicit and clear about what we think responsive mode is for, and to recontract that with the community based on the evidence that we hear. And we want to make sure that responsive mode is really going to encourage and support the diversity of the disciplines, approaches, people, places that it really should be doing. And that as a result of that, we will hope that the community will be engaged and confident that that BBSRC responsive mode is being well managed. And when you've got the greatest ideas that you've had, it's the place that you take them to be assessed and hopefully funded. So alongside this, because this takes time, we're already starting to think about what we might do in differently in the future, and to come up with some options, some costed options, because change is expensive. So they might be fairly simple things that we can do differently, to looking at the whole system and whether it really needs a shake up, as we did 15 years ago, and all points in between. We'll be doing some benchmarking, and we're already started in terms of working with other parts of UKRI to understand what other councils are doing, some of the challenges that they're facing, because all research councils' responsive mode is under pressure one way or another. And that work will lay the groundwork so that when we do have the kind of confirmed findings from evaluation, we're in a position to move quite quickly in terms of implementing whatever we would like to implement as a result of that. So as I said, we welcome your feedback and views, and I'd like to start by taking a short temperature take today, and deliberately not prep this in advance because I kind of want off the cuff kind of instinctive answers from you. About what responsive mode means for you and some of the things that you might want to do differently. So we have two questions. We're going to use a Mentimeter survey, which again I did last year and worked quite well. The first is, what do you see the greatest strength to BBSRC responsive mode being? And that might be one or might be multiple. I think in the Mentimeter survey we have space for up to 3. And the second question being, other than financial resources, which we recognise is always under pressure, what is the single change that would most improve BBSRC responsive mode? And that might be something incremental, it might be something quite radical, but really what's your gut level answer to that? So I will stop there, and I think colleagues are now sharing the Mentimeter survey. To be aware, it will be open for another hour or so after this. So if you've got a bit of time to reflect and if you would like to take that, please do. And I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to just give us a sense of kind of where the interest and energy is, and that will help us just hone our working. So thank you. I will stop there. And I think it's back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jef, and thanks, Tim and Rob. Let's move over to the Q&A session, and I think Sarah is chairing that.
Yes, I am, and Jef, might be helpful just to remove your slides and we can, wonderful, brilliant, thank you. And great to see so many questions coming through in the chat, and I can see that Rob in the background is trying to answer as many of the really interesting questions about RTPs as possible. So bear with us as we get through those, and hopefully we can answer as many as possible during the session. So Anne, first off, one for you. As our new Executive Chair, what are the 3 game changers that will transform bioscience for the next decade?
Sarah, I'm going to choose a scientific one, which is around our data-driven society now and AI for bioscience. This is not going to come as any surprise to many of you. You'll have all seen the way something like AlphaFold has been transformative to the way we do research, and there are many more examples of the importance of AI in the way we do science. So I think that impact of new technologies is going to, particularly around AI and machine learning, is going to be transformative. The second thing I think that we need to do to transform bioscience is around people, and I alluded to this in my presentation. Is about really training the capabilities, the people and skills that we need to do contemporary bioscience. And I think that really means thoughtfully. I mean, everybody says skills and training is important, but actually doing this thoughtfully, doing this in a way that is listening not only to our research community, but those outside the sector with whom we're interacting, what the kind of skills required in those contexts is very important. And I suggest we've not been doing that well enough, and we really need to drive that forward. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to deliver the advances that we have the potential to do. I think finally, the third thing that I think is transformative is thinking a little bit differently about how we do our research, evolving the way we work within UKRI and within our partnership. Certainly in the round tables that I chaired, and listening to that frank feedback from the people around the table, I think making ourselves accessible, creating conduits, channels, and opportunities for those outside our immediate sphere to find us, to work with us in that bi-directional, interconnected way, I think is to build a landscape which is porous. So that porosity, I think, needs to happen, and I think will be transformative. So those are the three things that immediately spring to mind. I suppose I could think of more if left for longer.
Thanks, Anne. That's really helpful. I'm picking up on some questions that we've had in advance as well as ones that are coming through in the chat. And if I may, I go to Jef, please. We had a question in advance around BBSRC's plans aligning with government strategy with regards to AMR. We've also had a couple of questions around, does it include pathogen preparedness, and a reflection that it was fragmented. So are you able to say a few words on AMR?
Absolutely. Fragmentation is absolutely the issue with AMR. We have for a number of years been looking at AMR strategy across UKRI, and I think we've characterised the challenges. There is no lack of money that has been spent on AMR, but there's been a lack of impact, and that's partly because of the fragmentation. So the UKRI Tackling Infections theme, which is one of our 5 UKRI kind of big mission themes, if you like, BBSRC is leading that. I'm actually the coordinator for that theme, and we have 2 big flagship areas. One is AMR and one is epidemic preparedness. And the first thing that we've done is funded a number 8, in fact, of high quality networks across the whole range of AMR areas, with the express intent of bringing together existing capabilities and communities across all of UKRI remit to try and bring new architectures and ways of working together, and that will deliver the impact that has thus far been missing. In terms of the way we're interacting with government, we are an integral part of the government's 5-year AMR action plan. And I'd say the same applies for pandemic preparedness. Through the Tackling Infections theme, we have a way to effectively convene and coordinate with government that we haven't had previously. And we have a much more integrated approach. There will be a published pandemic preparedness plan, which will cite the way we're working. And a similar approach has been taken with AMR, although it's a bit more mature. So hopefully that gives you a flavour.
Thanks, Jef. And Karen, may I come to you now with a couple of questions? We had one in advance around the new BBSRC fellowship scheme. How does it differ from Discovery Fellowship?
Yes.
We've had one in our chat around future plans, and also a question around, could you define ECRs as well for colleagues on the call?
Okay. So firstly, around the fellowships, this takes me back to this webinar last year, when we just had the announcement around the autumn statement, where there was now a new Discovery Fellowship, which of course created great confusion in our community, because we had our Discovery Fellowships and there was a new one. So we changed the name. So the BBSRC Fellowship is the Discovery Fellowship. It is the same as the previous one, with the same goal of supporting those early career researchers, in this sense, those that are taking that first step on that pathway to independence. And that is really important. We recognise of supporting that transition. Going forward, we want to very much continue to support those fellowships, and there will be a further announcements next year, but also importantly working collectively across UKRI to really make sure that that fellowship offering is optimal. So how do we balance that discipline piece with however we define early career researchers within each of our schemes? Is that now collectively the same? And also then to make sure that we look across all the career pathways and with the various discipline and multidisciplinary opportunities.
Thanks, Karen. Great. Amanda, if I may come to you, what's our strategy going forward for infrastructure investment, particularly thinking beyond the alert that Tim referred to?
Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah. Excuse me. In terms of our infrastructure investment, I sometimes think of alert as the tip of the iceberg, because there's a broad suite of infrastructure that we support, both funded through BBSRC directly, but also through reaching out, and I know Biofair's appeared in the chat as well, in terms of the UK Infrastructure Fund. So the go-to place to understand BBSRC's kind of infrastructure strategy is actually our strategic framework that Anne flagged in the slides. And that sets out a set of principles that we bear in mind when taking decisions around research and innovation infrastructure. That includes principles such as the importance of a balanced portfolio, that active engagement in terms of forward planning, also in terms of recognising the essential people element of infrastructure, and also critical issues such as sustainability and also effective and efficient delivery. Also recognising that sustainability can be both financial in nature and also, importantly, environmental sustainability too. So I popped the link in the chat, and I would encourage colleagues to take a look at our infrastructure strategic framework. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Amanda. And maybe one for Rob or Karen, seeing as Rob, you're kindly still with us. Can you tell us anything about the upcoming Focal Awards opportunity?
You would say that, Karen? So you're right. So BBSC will be launching 2 themes for Focal Awards in the new year, one around engineering biology and the second around data science and AI for biology. So please do watch this space for those opportunities.
Thanks, Rob. That's great. And Jef, may I come over to you now? So how does BBSRC collaborate with other research councils where the research might sit across and those boundaries? And a particular follow-on question around remit with the MRC.
That's a short question with a long answer. I think it depends whether you're talking about responsive mechanisms or kind of top-down managed mode mechanisms. Our managed mode mechanisms are almost entirely in partnership with other councils now. There are very few where we take a completely BBSRC centric view, and that's entirely appropriate, particularly where they tend to be around challenge led, and we know that challenge led approaches for impact, you need to integrate bioscience more widely. So hopefully from the kind of the UCRI collective mechanisms, but also those that we're undertaking more locally, that will be evident that we're increasingly working in partnership as a default. For responsive mode, I think the introduction of the interdisciplinary responsive mode slightly changes the flavour. For things which have been more problematic to handle in the past really have a home now. Nevertheless, it remains the case. I think it's misunderstood that we can take proposals that include components that cross council boundaries, and generally, if there's any doubt, we will have conversations with councils about where the best place is, but the default position is that every proposal should have a home. On the MRC interface specifically, this comes up at regular intervals, and in a previous role as a head of Bioscience for Health, it's one I often had to adjudicate on. I think the first thing to say is there is not a hard line between BBSRC and MRC remits, and there really shouldn't be. If there was, that would cause a lot more problems than it would solve. And that reflects the nature of the research, which effectively can point at the same research can point in different directions. And so the way we think about it, it's about primary motivation. For BBSRC research, primary motivation needs to be around understanding the rules of life, the healthy system, resilience, and what starts to happen when that breaks down as a way of understanding how it's maintained. So it's really a focus on that health. For MLC, then there's generally a clearer line to impact in terms of understanding, preventing, and treating disease. In terms of the areas that covers, there tends to be some fairly significant kind of functional overlaps in the area of aging research and nutrition and health, and what we call One Health. So this is the interface between human disease typically, but increasingly including plant disease as well. So those I think are the key interfaces. But I wanted to reassure you, we are used to managing that, and if you have any doubts about to stick something, just get in touch with us.
Thanks, Jef. Indeed, a simple question, but a really comprehensive answer. Thank you so much. Karen, if I may come to you, there's a couple of questions in the chat around impact acceleration accounts and whether you'd be able to share any updates with colleagues on the call.
Well, I'll pick that up about a broader question really about UKRI and our commitment to how we can better enable back to challenges, research, commercialisation and innovation. And so we've been working together, and one of the first things you might have seen happening is a greater harmonisation of impact acceleration accounts. There's still some way to go, and we are committed to doing that, but actually to timelines and so on, much like the doctoral training, because we've all got different scales and timelines, that's in process, but absolutely that is something that we are doing. More broadly than that, we're also, in terms of working together, looking at how we might make it much easier through a common application framework for other activities that we offer across UKRI that support commercialisation. And so, again, people should see that coming through, and it make it easier to join up the different mechanisms that we have. And we're also working with DSIT in delivering a proof of concept fund that you might be aware was announced in the autumn budget, and that will be a response to helping and supporting spin out companies from the research that we support.
Thanks, Karen. That's really helpful. Amanda, over to you. How would BBSRC support more research in data science, statistics and AI for bioscience, recognising that was a focus of Anne's presentation earlier?
Great, thank you, Sarah. And BBSRC has a long history of supporting kind of data-driven biology and increasingly moving into the world of AI. And a colleague reminded me earlier this week of the responsive mode research highlight from a few years ago that was focused on machine learning. So an early signal and an early way as machine learning started to impact on the biosciences, of pulling that into our kind of broad kind of discovery-led portfolio. And then since then, I think we've seen a suite of other interventions and investments, not least the recently supported, well, I say recently, it's probably about 18 months ago now, network focused on building the community around artificial intelligence in the biosciences. We've also supported AI, the deployment of AI and data-driven biology, coming back to the infrastructure question as well, in terms of the technical data infrastructure that we fund at the European Molecular Biology Laboratories, European Bioinformatics Institute. And actually that technical data infrastructure underpinned the data sets that then enabled the collaboration with DeepMind, and that led to the developments around AlphaFold. We've already, I think, we've heard from Rob in terms of the Focal Awards for next year, really thinking about talent, thinking about the workforce in terms of AI. And I also just want to acknowledge the piece around international collaboration as well. And so some of the funding that we've been able to deploy around enabling collaboration through really best with best partnership across the world around kind of AI for bioscience, and that's enabled partnership with the US, with Germany, with Canada, France, Japan and Switzerland, and also Australia. So there's a whole package of support in terms of data-driven bioscience and AI, and it's something, as we were hearing earlier from Anne, and in terms of our kind of new forward look, we really want to expand and grow as we look to the years ahead. And I would also encourage you, and I'll pop a link in the chat as well, just to take a look at that part of our website, which sets out sets out AI for bioscience as an area for investment and support. I'll leave it there, Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. That's great. I'm going to take the opportunity to just answer a question around our evaluation programme. So there was a question in the chat around how do we evaluate the success of our programmes, and we have colleagues that run a rolling programme, and it enables us to have accountability, informs our funding decisions, and we do that through a two-stage process. So we either have we either conduct internally led evaluation programmes where we use the expertise in-house or we commission them. We'll actually be taking a view as an executive in the new year around our rolling programme for evaluation programmes. So thank you for the prompt to consider training moving forward. So I will just take that opportunity to answer that question live. So recognising the time and the number of questions that we'll still hope to get through through follow-up conversations, I may pass back over to Anne for a few closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Sarah, for chairing that Q&A session so nicely. Thanks. First of all, I think I'd like to thank the panel for presentations and for answering questions. Secondly, I want to actually acknowledge that behind everything that we do with you and for you, there is quite a remarkable team of BBSRC professionals without whom none of the delivery and activities that we do within BBSRC would happen. They work tirelessly to support you and actually the wider UKRI community and more widely. So I really want to say a huge thank you to them. It's often a thankless task. So please note that the wonderful people that sit behind this work. And then finally, I want to thank all of you for coming today and for participating today, for listening to us, for asking great questions. We look forward to picking up on and answering those offline and through engagement with you going forward. And I look forward to interacting with you over the weeks, months and years to come. So thank you very much.